redlining maps across the nation. That project is called Mapping Inequality. What we did was zoom in on San Diego's maps specifically so that all of us San Diegans could see it all in one place, both how the federal government described the areas that were redlined, those that had both graded and not. And then we put it all together in one visual pamphlet in collaboration with a local designer so that you could browse through easily and see exactly how different areas of San Diego were described and how risk is basically assessed. So if you would allow me to go ahead and read our prologue to the piece, and once I finish, I will circulate the link to our website in our chat so that you can visualize, so that you can visit it yourselves and kind of take it in on your own time. So as you digest the following pages, think about where you live, work, and play. Think about how Hulk describes those places. Think about how you describe them today. What has changed? What stayed the same? Why? What is present? What is absent? Why? Is the change or sameness good or bad? For whom? Who is present? Who is absent?
A participant has joined the meeting.
And why? The year is 2020, and the state of those with lower wages or darker skin in our society is as precarious as it ever was. Yet, many still believe this precariousness is somehow willful or individually surmountable. The redlining maps, and more specifically, the federal government's Homeowners Loan Corporation, HOLC, their language, reflected in Mapping Inequality, underscores the depths and the inevitability of our society's persisting inequities. Indeed, people are disenfranchised in a world where their existence was long deemed and legally codified as an infiltration and a detriment. As we sit at the nexus of two pandemics, systemic racism and its resultant violence and the novel coronavirus, as well as a housing crisis, we are enduring a once-in-a-lifetime illuminating of the suffering and fatality that inequity yields, especially for Black and Brown people. As human beings, world citizens, and San Diegans, we must do something about inequity and build a collective edifice that moves, thinks, and acts. LISC does, and LISC will. Join us. Back to you, Ricardo. You're on mute.
Thank you, Sierra, for those words, and thank you for your work on this. Sierra is exactly right. We care, LISC cares, our colleagues care, and so I want to bring up one of our colleagues that's on this journey with us to effectively, again, we're asking the City Council to end single-family zoning, but also and which would provide wealth opportunities by allowing the parcels of land to be subdivided so that people can have home ownership opportunities. So I want to bring up one of my colleagues on this journey. Hamid, would you like to share some thoughts or words with us today?
Well, first of all, thanks a lot, Ricardo, for your tenacity and bringing this big elephant that's been in the room into fruition and to light. I just want to say that, being the victims of racist, systemic racism and fighting this fight for all too long, that, the culture of discrimination and exclusion is deeply embedded in our city and in federal government, and we haven't really got it until the George Floyd issue took place. I'm a descendant from slavery. My parents were born just 50 years out of slavery, and I know segregation and desegregation. People need houses. People need jobs, and one of the greatest segregators that is causing this perpetuation of rich and poor of a caste society is the wealth gap, is the fact that we're being deprived of jobs in construction, I represent the National Association of Black Contractors, and our fight every day is to get more African Americans and underrepresentation of people on the jobs, on the higher paying wage jobs. So I'm here as a supporter of this initiative. I believe that we have to create affordability. People cannot afford a lifestyle in San Diego. It takes $8,000 a month in order to 1/3 of your income in order to afford a 3-bedroom home. So there is no affordability. So to use and maximize your personal property to subdivide is a step in the right direction, and I think that it's creating a greater cohesion between the community and breaking down some of the racial barriers. People are thinking that this is a norm, and so I'm just here to support what you're doing, and I'm a part of it. And thank you for your fight and leading this fight.
Thank you, Hamid. So again, our goal here today is to release the redlining pamphlet that we put together. Many of us have seen the images, but we want you now to read what was said about our community, was said about San Diego at the time, who lived in San Diego, the ethnicities of folks in San Diego, and pay special attention to the use of to zoning and to single-family zoning. They call it R1. And you'll notice that the federal government was very explicit in telling lenders and others, these are good places to invest. Kensington, Talmadge, Mission Hills, La Jolla, these are good places to invest because there is single-family zoning, and that zoning essentially allows for those communities to stay exclusively white. And that the communities where people of color were at the time living in apartments or multifamily units were not allowed in there. And so that's what we're highlighting today. And then the second piece is that we've already started this. We started this coalition in October of last year, believe it or not. And one of the things we've done is
joined the meeting.
Recently, we sat down with council members Georgette Gomez, Monica Montgomery, and Vivian Moreno, because we know that
left the meeting.
We know that they have a strong interest in this issue because many of their communities were redlined. Actually, all of them were. And,
That's right.
And as women of color, we think it's unconscionable that they sit on top of a $1.6 billion organization that is continuing this apartheid. And it's a matter of values, and it's a matter of really finding the opportunity to do this. And so we've actually presented them with what to do. And what we're saying for them to do is to amend and extend an ordinance that they passed in 2015 that allows for the subdivision of all properties in the city of San Diego, and thus adding opportunity for those left out of this process. And so that's what we're asking for, and that's what we're showing here today. And we've also asked the same of our 2 mayoral candidates. So we haven't heard responses from them, but we actively want to send the redlining pamphlet to them and hope that we can get a letter of support so that we can put this shameful history behind us, we can move forward, and that most importantly, when we move forward, we can actually do what we want to do, which is we want to extend wealth opportunity to all of our communities. And this is a vehicle to do that. And when we say extend wealth, we mean people want to own land. They want to be landowners. And so by allowing the subdivision of properties, you're going to allow for that to happen. And more importantly, one of our coalition members actually owns a piece of land that he would love this opportunity to provide for his own children. I would love the same for my mother and my mother-in-law. So with that, we are also going to be taking some questions. If there's any questions on the line, please go ahead. And I'm going to unmute everybody. So if you have any questions, go ahead. Any questions? Any questions? No?
Yeah. Hi, Ricardo. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Great. This is Andrea with the Union Tribune.
Hello.
Oh, there's a lot of feedback.
Yeah, I'm muting other people. Go ahead. Andrea, go ahead. Oh, Andrea, we lost you. Anybody else?
I think she was a call-in as well as a visual.
Oh,
maybe?
was she?
So I think she may have been one of the phones. Yeah, maybe user 2.
Okay. Andrea, are you still there?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes. Good call, Sierra. Yes, I can hear you. We can hear you.
Sorry. Sorry, my audio wasn't connecting on my laptop, so I had to call in. To clarify, the text in the actual pamphlet, that is from the 1930s? Do you guys have a specific date?
I believe it's 1930.
Correct. It's the language that was used by the Homeowners Loan Corporation. It's either 35 was the date of the map.
Yeah, 35, 36. Yeah.
35, 36.
Yeah.
Okay.
And,
And then, sorry, go ahead.
No, please.
And then, I was going through it last night and looking at some of these terms, no threat of infiltration, restricted to the Caucasian race, no threat of infiltration, again, inharmonious. Like, as advocates, what do you take looking at those words, seeing that's how they describe some of the neighborhoods that, a lot of us live in?
I mean, for me personally, and it's not surprising. I think that the depths of what we're talking about in this country with structural racism doesn't surprise me. In fact, I think those words, if anything, they were trying to find a benign way of saying it, but to the modern ears, that's not benign. But I'm not shocked by it, to be honest with you, unfortunately. Anything from my colleagues, Hamid, Sierra?
No, I just want to say that.
Oh, sorry, Hamid. Hold on.
Our expectations is basically to get the lawmakers to really move forward. I mean, we're talking about world pandemic. We're dealing with systemic racism. We're dealing with with a virus, and we're dealing with all things that are basically have caused this caste society. So the question will be is, this will actually create affordability, and I think that for the media, the spin on this is to show that we're trying to deal with the homeless situation. We were taking a drive a couple of nights ago, and just a short story, and we were frustrated with the homelessness. And one of the things that came to bear is that what we're doing, these organizations that are part of this coalition are actually a part of the solution. And so bringing this out into the forefront to people who are in their comfort zones. We've set up these reservations. We've set up these slave labor camps. We've segregated the working poor communities, and that's what the redlining was supposed to be about: keeping the working poor within a certain demographics, so that they could leverage federal dollars and say, we have a poverty zone over here. This is why we need federal aid and federal assistance. So I think that once we break that down and we have true parity and equality, then we're going to see a greater opportunity for future generations. And as was eloquently put, it's our time to make changes. We can't leave it for the next generation. There won't be anything left for the next generation. We have to break down all the barriers, economic barriers, affordability of housing, all the things that are keeping us and keeping the American people society oppressed. I concur with Black Lives Matter, but more so I concur with Human Lives Matter. So if we're all looking at each other as humans, then we're not going to have a problem whether or not someone is saying it's blue lives, black lives, or white lives matter. It's human lives. And I think that that's what we need to get to today.
Thank you, Hamid. Any other questions, comments?
Hey, Ricardo, I just wanted to let you know we're on site and ready to start when you are.
All right, so that's our team that's going to be out there. And again, the goal here is our team there is going to be taking what's a 2D map here and making it 3D for the public to actually see what's happening. So we're going to be doing it right now in Kensington, and then we're also going to go to La Jolla at noon to highlight what was called the Servants' Quarters, which was an area of La Jolla just for people of color to live to serve the white community of La Jolla, which many don't know. So any other questions, comments? Okay. Well, thank you all. We'll make sure you have a copy of the link, and you can see we're starting our process now. And that's that. Again, the goal here. And this is just so everyone knows, this is spray chalk, kids spray chalk. So it goes away. But what doesn't go away and what hasn't gone away is this issue. And that's what we're saying today to our policymakers locally. Locally, we're saying to them, you can solve this problem. you can amend and extend the 2005 sublot division ordinance through the whole city of San Diego, put the shameful history to pass, but most importantly, provide opportunity for young people, people of color, to own homes, which is very important. So thank you all. And again, we urge you to read that pamphlet and to share that with the public so that they can see this history for themselves. Did you have a comment? Good.
Thank you, Ricardo, and keep up the good work.
Thank you. Thank you all. And I'll just stay on for anybody that has a question, because I just kind of want to watch what they're doing. Because in this COVID world, we're all locked in. Yeah, I mean, in some ways, I actually, what I would have loved to have done.
Andrea Lopez
has left the meeting.
I would have loved to have put a giant 3D image of a wall, so that people actually could almost see a fake wall, because that's effectively what's happened here.
So this is basically the redlining. On one side, from that line on the other side was where the poverty zone or the where they redlined the communities. Is that in Kensington?
Yeah, it's Kentington. And actually within Kentington, because that's where I live, within Kentington, if you live south of this street, you're considered Baja Kensington. And and so within Kensington, there's segregation. But if you live south of Adams, you're Baja Kensington. If you're north of Adams, north of this red line, you're in proper Kensington, the place people would like to actually, some people would like to live, right? So this gets even deeper and more ingrained. And I think when we, later today at noon, when we do the La Jolla thing, it'll be even more shocking. It'll be in front of Bishop's High, and it'll be down Bishop's High, down La Jolla Boulevard, all the way to Marine Street and take a left. And that's just the outline. We can't even do the full thing because the roads are differently created now. But again, this is in our lifetime, if you will. This is not that long ago that this happened, and we're still living with it. And again, I would ask our media partners, wherever you're from in the United States, if you're not from San Diego, think about who lives in the best neighborhoods in your community. What do they look like? Where do they go to school? Or what do the kids in those schools look like? What do the parks look like? And then ask yourself, how is that possible? That to this day, these communities are still segregated. And what we're articulating what Richard Rothstein articulated in his book, Color of Law, is it's zoning. It's actually zoning. We did this to ourselves, and we did it on purpose. And the beautiful thing about these redlining maps is this is actually a neutral observer, the federal government in this case, telling us that why they did it. They actually specifically say this is a good area to invest in because there's this type of zoning. So,
wow. Interesting. Now, let me ask you one thing, Ricardo. My mother used to work in Kensington when I was a child. Was that a predominantly Jewish community at that time?
I don't think so. It didn't specify that in the redlining. No, it was pretty much all white. It was writers and educated folks. The maps are actually really interesting because they not only tell you kind of the topography, but who lived there, how much they made, what type of homes they had. It, in fact, it even goes to the point in saying how old the housing stock is for that time. So you can actually, so if it's old in the redlining map, that means it's real old. But it gives you a nice, quick snapshot of what is going on in those neighborhoods. But I did not see that people of the Jewish faith were allowed to live there at all. I did not see that. And again, that's the other interesting thing about our mayoral candidates is both of them would have been subject to these redlining policies.
Right.
100 years ago.
Yeah, I remember Barbara saying that there was places that Jews couldn't buy in this city as well.
La Jolla. Yeah.
And the question be, is it now because of the lack of affordability, or is it just because of the redlining is still exists and prevalent?
So it has to do with really it allows a supply and demand. Kensington is officially built out. There is no way you can build anything new housing stock in Kensington unless you tear down something to build something up. And so that was one of the ways that that these laws worked was it allowed people to say, well, of course you could live here, Hamid. Even though you're a person of color, you can live here if you buy 5,000 or 7,000 square feet of land. And at the time, that was impossible because you had just got, people, there was still this overt racism, right? You couldn't go into colleges. You couldn't do all sorts of things that nowadays I think all of us on this call would shake our heads in shame. But at the time, you didn't even have that opportunity. So how were you ever going to make enough money to live in those neighborhoods? So it was
York has joined the meeting.
It was a self-fulfilling kind of prophecy that they didn't want people of color, and that's what they got. And to this day, it's the same way.
Got it. Well, this is great. I hope that we get the proper attention and get a movement behind this, these barriers. But yeah, it definitely works for our contractors to be able to build. They're trying to compromise with the granny flat, but that doesn't create home ownership. And so what you're talking about is breaking down the R1 5,000 square foot lots into the 2,500 square foot lot, single family homes. So that create, it's a higher density. I see where there'd be a pushback of the density issue, but it also create affordability. So it's like villages. When I went to Cuba, when you go to some of those countries where they have high density communities, people live in a very cohesive community and they work together and they live together, and you have to have affordability. So I think this is a step in the right direction.
And the other thing too, Hamid, that I've thought about is I don't think there's ever been a time since the 1600s when black men and women were brought here as slaves that white and black people lived together and white people were okay with that. I don't think there's ever been a time in the history of the United States of America where that's been a reality. And it's far past time that we do something about that.
It's really something. I've been to La Jolla and even in Coronado, and you can go back and see those holding quarters for the servants' quarters that are still there.
Oh, wow.
I mean, behind these houses, they have little rooms and they have little bathrooms. I was over in Coronado and I was looking at where the servants live, and the same thing in La Jolla. Mm-hmm. They're historic. I don't think they should be destroyed. I think they should always be stayed so that you can show the symbolism of what how far we've come. But we're not too far removed from slavery. As I said, I was born Jim Crow. I lived in a Jim Crow society for 10 years. And so that's not something I'm reading in the history books. That's something I lived, and my parents lived through it, etc. etc. But this is good work.
Thank you.
I'm gonna have to jump off the call.
Thank you, Hamid.
And I'm enjoying the redlining out there. I wish I was out there to see it.
I know.
Where's this at? On Kensington? On what street is that at?
This is Kensington on the north side of Adams on Kensington, just east of the 15 freeway. So how long is that chalk going to be down there? It'll wash away in a couple days, probably. I mean, it's just kids.
Okay, I just want to go out there to see it, so I can.
No, it'll be out there for.
I want to see what it feels like to live in the white neighborhood, to step over the line.
Thank you, Hamid, for joining us. Is there any of our media colleagues? Thank you for staying on. I know it's kind of strange that we were having to do this now, but is there any other questions or comments that you guys have for us? I know we're all just kind of watching the redlining.
Hi, how's it going? Would you like one of our educational pamphlets?
And so that's the other part of this is we are passing out to the public this cover sheet that includes the information on La Jolla for right now. And then on the back, at noon, it'll include the information. I'm sorry, La Jolla at noon. And then right now, the information for Kensington is right here. So really, for folks that are questioning and saying, why are you doing this? We're providing them some information to educate themselves, and hopefully they will and understand what's been going on. And hopefully for folks out there, allies out there that are saying that we need to change opportunities for people of color, we need to build wealth, we need to break down barriers, especially structural racism. This will hopefully help guide them to understanding what we're doing here today is not only important, but necessary. And hopefully it will encourage them to call up Georgette Gomez, Vivian Moreno, Monica Montgomery, Todd Gloria, Barbara Bree, and say to them, this is important.
Has left the meeting.
this is important, and you need to be behind that. And our coalition, again, is a Black and Brown coalition, and we're coming to them as allies in this struggle because most of our groups work with people in poverty. In fact, that's the thing about our groups. If you notice, all of our groups that are that are part of this coalition work with people, poor people of color. We all have jobs because of this segregation and because it continues. All of us primarily work in these neighborhoods, LISC included, to try to redress some of these challenges. But what we're realizing is all the money that we're putting in there, all the effort that we're doing, that there are barriers that we are not able to cross. And so these 5 individuals, or 4, because one of them will be mayor, 4 of them actually have the opportunity right now without any problems to say, enough's enough. We're going to change the way we are structured as a city, provide wealth and opportunity for people so they can subdivide their properties. And we're going to put this shameful history to pass, because our coalition is interested not just in this action and in removing this and amending the subdivision ordinance, but we're interested in going off to philanthropy and others to help provide home ownership, true home ownership to individuals on these lots. And then, like Hamid mentioned, from the Black Contractors, we've got a lot of folks out there that would love to build this housing stock. And I know for any economist that you can talk to, I'm sure they will tell you that there's pent-up demand, there's a need for this housing, there's a need for this work, there's a need for contractors, a need for construction workers. We're just saying to those 5 individuals out of the 1 or 4 have the power, out of the 1.3 million of us, 4 individuals have the opportunity this September or October to make this change. And we urge the mayor to sign that into law and to do something historic, from San Diego. We talk about San Diego being a special place. Let's match that. Let's do something special. Let's do something important. Let's make noise other than just the fact that we happen to be at the beach and we happen to have SeaWorld and the zoo here. Let's do something important and impactful, and let's set a tone for the rest of the country. Any other questions or comments from the public? No?
Neighborhood, they would redline.
I'm sorry, say that again? Did someone have a question? No? Okay, well, we'll go ahead and leave it there. And thank you, Marissa. And thank you all for participating. And again, you have our contact information if you want to talk in a noon. Marissa and her colleagues.
A participant has left the
will be
meeting.
in La Jolla. Thank you all.